The stars looked different from the bridge of the UES Pioneer. Captain Eric Bennett stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the unfamiliar patterns through the main viewport. Humanity's first interstellar ship had traveled farther than any human before, reaching the edge of the Alpha Centauri system after 3 years of journey. "Captain, we're picking up something on long-range scanners," said Communications Officer Kate Miller. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wide. "It's big, sir, and it's not natural." Bennett nodded, feeling his heart race. "Alert all stations. First contact protocol." The crew moved with practiced precision, though everyone knew this was no drill. They had trained for this moment for years, but no one truly believed it would happen on their mission. The object approached at impossible speed, then suddenly stopped 2 kilometers from the Pioneer. It was a sleek vessel, at least 5 times their size, with a metallic purple hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They're hailing us, sir," Miller said. "Audio and visual. On screen," Bennett ordered, straightening his uniform. The view screen flickered to life, showing a being with grayish-blue skin, large eyes, and a ridge of small spines running from the top of its head down its neck. It wore an ornate uniform covered in symbols. "This is Captain Eric Bennett of the United Earth Ship Pioneer. We come in peace as representatives of humanity." The alien tilted its head, then made a sound like bubbling water. A second later, its words came through in perfect English. "How fascinating. A new species, venturing beyond its cradle." The alien leaned forward. "I am Grand Admiral Krestar of the Zolaxian Empire. You are trespassing in Imperial territory. We apologize for any violation," Bennett said carefully. "We weren't aware this system was claimed. We're explorers, seeking peaceful contact with other intelligent life." Krestar made a gesture to someone off-screen, and several other Zolaxians moved into view. They examined the humans with curious eyes. "Look at their vessel," one said, not bothering to hide its amusement. "Chemical propulsion with basic ion assistance. How did they even get here?" "Their communication technology is primitive too," another added. "And their protective shielding is practically non-existent." Bennett felt his face grow warm, but maintained his diplomatic smile. "We would welcome any opportunity to learn from the Zolaxian Empire. Perhaps we could establish trade relations." This prompted open laughter from the aliens. Krestar silenced them with a gesture. "Captain Bennett, the Zolaxian Empire has ruled this galaxy for over 4,000 years. We have encountered many developing species. Some become useful members of the Empire. Others," he shrugged. "Well, not all species are destined for greatness." Over the next several hours, the Zolaxians explained the galactic situation. Earth now fell under Zolaxian protection. Humans would be allowed limited trade but could not expand beyond their solar system without permission. The Pioneer would be fitted with a Zolaxian beacon before returning home. "Consider your world a nature preserve of sorts," Krestar explained. "Your development will be monitored. Perhaps in a few centuries, you might be ready for limited citizenship." Back on Earth, 3 months later, the news was met with a mixture of wonder and humiliation. Humans were not alone in the universe, but they were apparently the galactic equivalent of amusing children. Dr. Olivia Grant sat in her laboratory beneath MIT, examining the few pieces of technology the Zolaxians had provided as cultural exchange. They were simple devices, the alien equivalent of calculators and children's toys, but Grant handled them with intense focus. "They think we're stupid," she muttered to her assistant. "They gave us their version of Tinker Toys." She turned a small purple device over in her hands, then connected it to her diagnostic equipment. The readings made her pause. "That's odd," she said, running the test again. "The power source. It's efficient, but the circuit design is unnecessarily complex. Almost redundant." She worked through the night, dismantling and reassembling the device. By morning, she had improved its efficiency by 30% using only Earth technology. They'd been the top dogs so long, they've stopped innovating, she said, a small smile forming on her lips. They've forgotten how to think outside the box. Grant reached for her phone. This was something the government needed to know immediately. The Zalaxians might be laughing now, but Dr. Olivia Grant had just spotted the first crack in their armor. 5 years passed since Earth's first contact with the Zalaxian Empire. Humans were now a popular form of entertainment throughout the galaxy. Zalaxian broadcasts showed human cities, sports, and daily life, with alien commentators laughing at what they called primitive antics. Dr. Olivia Grant wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked in a secret facility deep beneath the Mojave Desert. The room hummed with machines and glowed with holographic displays. She had spent these 5 years studying every scrap of alien technology the Zalaxians allowed humans to have. "Hand me the molecular bonder," she said to Sean Mitchell, the military engineer assigned to her team. Sean passed her the tool. He was tall with broad shoulders and a serious face. "Will it work this time?" he asked. "It has to," Olivia replied, making a final adjustment to the device on her workbench. It looked like a small silver box with blue lights. "The Zalaxians visit tomorrow. We need to be ready." What the aliens didn't know was that humans had been busy, while pretending to be grateful for the scraps of technology they were given. Scientists like Olivia had been finding ways to improve it. "They think we're stuck using their outdated hand-me-downs," Sean said, watching Olivia work. "They have no idea what we've really figured out." Olivia nodded. "Their technology hasn't changed in thousands of years. They have no reason to innovate because no one challenges them." She activated the small device, and it floated 6 inches above the table. "But we found at least 7 ways to improve their basic anti-gravity tech already." The next day, 3 Zalaxian officials arrived for their yearly inspection. They wore flowing robes with symbols of their rank and looked down their ridged noses at the human scientists who greeted them. "Welcome to Earth Research Center 1, said the center director, smiling politely at the visitors. The lead Zalaxian, Inspector Vexlor, barely acknowledged the greeting. "Show us what you've been doing with our generous gifts," he said, his translator making his tone sound bored. The humans led their visitors through carefully prepared labs. They showed only projects that seemed impressive to human standards, but would look basic to the aliens. When they reached Olivia's lab, she demonstrated a modified communication device. "We've managed to increase the range by almost 50%, she said proudly. The Zalaxians looked at each other, then burst into laughter. "Impressive for humans, I suppose," Vexlor said, still chuckling. "But that design is what we give to our children as learning tools. The fact that you've only improved it by 50% in 5 years is actually quite amusing." Olivia forced a smile. "We're doing our best with what we have." "Of course you are," another Zalaxian said kindly, as if speaking to a child. "And we enjoy watching your efforts. Your species provides excellent entertainment for the Empire." After the inspection, Olivia and Sean met in the real laboratory, hidden 20 levels below the fake one. Here, surrounded by technology far beyond what the Zalaxians thought humans could create, they debriefed with General Frank Howard. "They suspect nothing," Olivia confirmed. "They still think we're struggling with their children's toys." Sean activated a secure holographic display showing schematics of a Zalaxian ship. While they were laughing upstairs, our systems were scanning their shuttle. "We now have complete readings of their faster-than-light drive." General Howard nodded gravely. "And?" Olivia smiled. "Their FTL technology has a fundamental flaw. They use a crystalline matrix to focus energy, but it creates microfractures after each jump. They've compensated by adding layers of redundancy rather than fixing the core problem." "Can we exploit this?" the general asked. "Better," Olivia replied. "We've designed our own drive that doesn't have the flaw at all. It's smaller, faster, and more efficient than theirs." She pulled up another hologram showing a prototype engine. "How soon until it's ready?" General Howard asked. Sean and Olivia exchanged looks. 6 months, Sean answered. Then we can begin retrofitting the Pioneer." The general smiled for the first time. The Zalaxians won't be laughing much longer. Behind them, on a screen showing a galaxy map, a small blue dot labeled Earth pulsed quietly among thousands of purple Zalaxian-controlled systems. For now, Earth seemed insignificant, but that was about to change. 6 months later, the UES Pioneer sat in Earth orbit, looking much the same as before on the outside. Inside, however, it had been completely rebuilt with Dr. Grant's improvements. Captain Eric Bennett walked through the ship's corridors, barely recognizing the vessel he had commanded for years. "All systems are ready, Captain," Sean Mitchell reported as Bennett entered the bridge. "The new drive is functioning perfectly in all simulations." Bennett nodded, taking his seat in the command chair. "And our Zalaxian guests?" "They just docked," Olivia said from her new station. "They think this is just a ceremonial flight around the solar system." Today's mission had been carefully planned. A delegation of Zalaxian officials would observe a demonstration of human progress. What they would see was carefully controlled, impressive enough to show advancement, but not enough to cause alarm. The Zalaxians arrived on the bridge, led by Grand Admiral Krestar himself. He had not visited Earth since first contact 5 years ago. "Captain Bennett," he said with a slight nod, "I look forward to seeing how you've improved your vessel with our gracious assistance. We're honored by your presence, Admiral," Bennett replied, keeping his face neutral. "We'll be departing shortly for a tour of the solar system." The Zalaxians took their places at the back of the bridge, watching with amused expressions as the human crew prepared for departure. "Notice their manual control interfaces," one Zalaxian whispered to another, "still using physical buttons instead of neural links." Just as the Pioneer was about to leave orbit, an urgent message came through. "Captain," Communications Officer Miller called out, "emergency signal from Mars Colony 1. A rogue asteroid was just detected on collision course with the main dome. Impact in 15 minutes. The Zalaxians stepped forward with sudden interest. "How unfortunate," Krestar said. "There's a Zalaxian patrol vessel near Mars, but it would take them at least 30 minutes to respond." Bennett looked at Olivia, who gave a tiny nod. "Plot an intercept course," Bennett ordered. "Maximum speed." The helmsman entered the commands. "Course plotted. At our best speed, we would arrive in 22 minutes, sir." "That won't be soon enough," Bennett said gravely. Then, more quietly, "Activate the new drive." The helmsman looked surprised but complied. New drive engaged. The stars on the view screen suddenly stretched, and the ship jumped forward with acceleration that should have been impossible for human technology. The Zalaxians stumbled, grabbing onto railings for support. "What is this?" Krestar demanded. "A small improvement we've made," Bennett said calmly. "We'll reach Mars in 8 minutes." The Zalaxians stared in disbelief as the ship moved faster than any human vessel they had ever observed. When they arrived at Mars, Bennett ordered the ship into position between the colony and the approaching asteroid. "Activate deflector shield," he commanded. A blue energy field extended from the ship, catching the asteroid and gradually altering its course away from the colony. The shield technology was clearly based on Zalaxian designs, but it operated with greater efficiency than the aliens thought possible. When the danger had passed, the Mars colonists sent their thanks. The Zalaxians remained silent, their earlier amusement replaced by confusion and concern. "You seem to have made unusual progress," Krestar finally said. Olivia stepped forward. "We're quick learners, Admiral." Back on Earth after the mission, the Zalaxian delegation met privately. Unknown to them, Admiral Diane Rodriguez listened through surveillance devices hidden in their quarters. "This is troubling," Krestar said to his officers. "The humans have advanced too quickly. Their improvements to our technology show a concerning level of understanding." "It was just one ship," another Zalaxian argued, "and a simple deflector shield." "Don't be naive," Krestar snapped. "If they can improve our shield technology and propulsion systems so quickly, what else have they figured out? We need to restrict their access further and increase monitoring. After the Zalaxians departed, Admiral Rodriguez called an emergency meeting with world leaders. The Zalaxians are worried, she told them, playing the recording. And worried empires make dangerous decisions. We need to accelerate our plans. Across the table, Dr. Grant and Sean Mitchell exchanged glances. How soon can we outfit more ships? Rodriguez asked them. 3 months for the next 10 vessels. Sean answered. But we need to be careful. The Zalaxians will be watching us more closely now. Then we'll need to be even more clever, Rodriguez said. And we'll need allies. Are we ready to make contact with the other subjugated species? Admiral Diane Rodriguez stood before a screen showing a strange blue-skinned being with 4 eyes. The being spoke in a musical language that a computer translated into English. We have suffered under Zalaxian rule for 8 centuries, said Talax, leader of the Navari people. Your message brings us the first hope we've had in generations. Rodriguez nodded. The Zalaxians think all other species are inferior. That's their weakness. We've already improved their technology, and we've only known about it for 5 years. In another window on the screen, a reptilian being with golden scales and sharp teeth listened carefully. This was Vorex, a general of the Keldor, known for their strategic brilliance before the Zalaxians conquered them. Your species has fire, Vorex said with approval. But the Empire has millions of warships. How can we fight such numbers? We don't need to defeat their entire empire at once, Rodriguez explained. We just need to shock them enough that other systems will join the rebellion. The meeting took place in a secure room 200 feet below the Rocky Mountains. For months now, Earth had been building a resistance network with other subjugated species. The Zalaxians never imagined that their primitives would work together. Across the galaxy, Lisa Parker sat quietly in a corner of the Zalaxian embassy on Earth. As a human diplomat, the aliens largely ignored her presence during their meetings. They spoke freely, considering her too simple to understand the complex politics of their empire. Emperor Zox is displeased with the human situation, said one official to another. Grand Admiral Krestar promised to keep them contained, but reports show they're advancing too quickly. What's the latest plan? Asked the other. We'll begin relocating millions of humans to labor worlds next month. Breaking up their population should slow their development. Lisa kept her face calm while she recorded every word. That night, she transmitted the information to Admiral Rodriguez using a device Dr. Grant had created. It looked like a normal bracelet, but could send messages that Zalaxian sensors couldn't detect. Back at the mountain base, Rodriguez called an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders. The Zalaxians planned to start removing humans from Earth in 30 days, she announced. We need to move faster than planned. Dr. Grant and Sean Mitchell presented their latest creation, a device they called the Disruptor. It was smaller than a coffee cup, but glowed with blue energy. This can temporarily disable Zalaxian shield technology, Grant explained. It creates a resonance frequency that causes their crystalline power matrices to fail for approximately 6 minutes. Is that enough time? Asked the president. For a coordinated attack, yes, Rodriguez answered. The Navari have provided the locations of 20 key Zalaxian worlds. The Keldor have given us their battle strategies. Sean Mitchell pointed to a holographic map showing small blue dots spread across Zalaxian territory. We've been sending cultural exchange ships throughout their space for months now. Each carries hidden weapons and disruptors. Our people are in position, Rodriguez added. Commander Joe Wilson leads the fleet. They appear to be simple diplomatic vessels, but they're ready for combat. What about Earth's defenses? Someone asked. Once we strike, the Zalaxians will retaliate. We've prepared for that, Grant said. Every major city now has hidden shield generators. We've also placed automated defense platforms in orbit disguised as communication satellites. Rodriguez stood up. The Zalaxians have ruled through fear and arrogance for millennia. They broadcast humans as entertainment because they think we're harmless. That ends now. She turned to the communications officer. Send the signal to Commander Wilson. Operation Trojan Horse begins in 24 hours. Across the galaxy, on 20 different worlds, humans posing as cultural ambassadors received the coded message. They met secretly with local resistance leaders, sharing the plan and distributing weapons. On the Zalaxian homeworld, Grand Admiral Krestar watched a broadcast showing humans performing a concert for alien dignitaries. He laughed at their simple music and primitive instruments. An aide approached nervously. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy readings from several human diplomatic vessels. Probably just their inefficient technology," Krestar said dismissively. "Nothing to worry about." The aide hesitated. "Sir, the readings match no known human pattern." Krestar's laughter faded. For the first time, a flicker of concern crossed his face. Commander Joe Wilson stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES ambassador. Around him, 20 crew members watched their screens with tense faces. The ship looked like a civilian vessel from the outside, but inside it was a warship. "All teams report ready, Commander," said his first officer. Wilson nodded. "Send the final confirmation to Earth." His ship orbited a busy Zalaxian trade world called Mersex. Below, millions of aliens from dozens of species lived and worked under Zalaxian rule. Most were treated like second-class citizens. Wilson checked the time. In exactly 10 minutes, 19 other human ships just like his would activate their disruptors near key Zalaxian worlds. The timing had to be perfect. "Zalaxian patrol vessel approaching," warned the sensor officer. "They're hailing us." On the screen appeared a bored-looking Zalaxian officer. "Human vessel, state your business." Wilson smiled politely. "Cultural exchange mission. We're scheduled to perform Earth music tonight at the Central Plaza." The Zalaxian yawned. "Another one." "Fine. Proceed as planned." The screen went dark. "They still don't see us as a threat," Wilson said quietly. "That's about to change." When the countdown reached 0, Wilson gave the order. "Activate the disruptor." A small device in the center of the bridge glowed blue, then pulsed with energy. Throughout the Zalaxian city below, their advanced defense systems suddenly failed. Shield generators shut down. Weapon systems went offline. Communication networks stopped working. At the same moment, across 20 worlds, the same thing happened. The carefully planned rebellion had begun. Wilson opened a channel to the resistance fighters on the planet. "Shields are down. You have 6 minutes." On the surface, the local resistance forces sprang into action. Led by a Navari commander named Sila, they seized control of government buildings and communication centers. Similar uprisings occurred on all 20 worlds simultaneously. The Zalaxians, who had ruled unchallenged for millennia, were completely unprepared. Their rigid military structure fell apart without central command. For the first time in living memory, they'd faced a coordinated attack they couldn't stop. Wilson's ship deployed smaller fighters that had been hidden inside. These swift vessels targeted Zalaxian military installations with precise strikes. They weren't trying to destroy the Zalaxians, only to disable their ability to fight back. On the Zalaxian homeworld, Grand Admiral Krestar stared in disbelief at the reports flooding in. 20 major worlds under attack at once. Defense systems failing everywhere. It made no sense. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Who is coordinating these attacks?" An officer looked up from his console with fear in his eyes. "Sir, we're detecting the same energy signature at all attack sites. It appears to be human in origin." Krestar's face darkened. "Impossible. They're primitives." Another report came in. "Admiral, the human ships are broadcasting a message on all frequencies." "Show me," Krestar ordered. On the main screen appeared Captain Eric Bennett of the UES Pioneer. Behind him stood Admiral Rodriguez, Dr. Grant, and Sean Mitchell. "People of the galaxy," Bennett said calmly. "For too long, the Zalaxian Empire has ruled through fear and oppression. They have treated other species as inferior, using them for entertainment and labor while restricting their growth. Bennett's face became serious. Today, that changes. Earth and our allies, the Navari, the Keldor, and many others, are reclaiming our freedom. We don't seek to destroy the Zalaxians, only to end their empire. The broadcast showed footage of successful uprisings across multiple worlds. Zalaxian forces surrendering. Former slave species celebrating. The show is over, Bennett concluded. Krestar smashed his fist on the console, breaking it. Mobilize the Imperial fleet. All of it. Crush these insects immediately. But reports kept coming in. More worlds were joining the rebellion now that they saw it was possible. Systems that had been loyal for centuries were declaring independence. As the broadcasts continued, Zalaxian citizens watched humans, the species they had laughed at for years, leading the most successful rebellion in Imperial history. Krestar ordered his personal battleship prepared. Set course for Earth, he commanded, his voice shaking with rage. If we destroy their homeworld, this rebellion will collapse. What he didn't know was that Admiral Rodriguez had anticipated this move. The trap was set, and the Zalaxians were flying straight into it. The massive Zalaxian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Proxima Centauri, the star closest to Earth's sun. Over 300 warships filled the space, led by Grand Admiral Krestar's flagship, the Emperor's Fist. It was the largest military force the Empire had assembled in 500 years. We will crush these humans and make an example of them, Krestar announced to his commanders. Then we will retake the rebellious worlds one by one. The Admiral's face had lost its usual smug expression. Now it showed only rage and fear. The empire he had served his entire life was falling apart, all because they had underestimated a species they thought was primitive. As the fleet prepared to jump to the Sol system, sensors detected movement. From behind a nearby moon emerged a much smaller force of 50 ships. Some were human vessels. Others belonged to the Navari and Keldor. They formed a tight formation, facing the massive Imperial Armada. They dared to challenge us directly. Krestar laughed, though the sound held no humor. Destroy them all. The Zalaxian ships moved forward, weapons charging. But instead of retreating, the smaller fleet split into 3 groups and attacked from different angles. Admiral Rodriguez commanded this operation from the UES Defiant, Earth's first true warship. Beside her stood Vorax, the Keldor general whose people had studied Zalaxian tactics for centuries. They're reacting exactly as you predicted, Rodriguez noted. Vorax nodded. The Zalaxians haven't changed their battle formations in 1,000 years. They rely on overwhelming force, not strategy. The human-led fleet executed complex maneuvers that confused the Zalaxian targeting systems. Their ships were smaller but much faster, dancing between the massive Imperial vessels. Deploy the disruptors, Rodriguez ordered. Dozens of the small devices activated simultaneously. Blue energy waves spread throughout the battlefield. Aboard the Zalaxian ships, shield generators failed and weapon systems went offline. Impossible, Krestar shouted as his flagship's lights flickered. How are they doing this? The smaller Allied ships now attacked with precision. They didn't try to destroy the Zalaxian vessels, only to disable their engines and weapons. Many of the Imperial crews surrendered immediately when they realized they were defenseless. Rodriguez opened a channel to the Zalaxian flagship. Admiral Krestar, your fleet is disabled. Surrender now and avoid unnecessary loss of life. Krestar smashed the communication panel in fury. Divert all emergency power to the jump drive. We're continuing to Earth. Only a third of the Zalaxian fleet managed to escape, jumping toward the Sol system. But Rodriguez had expected this too. They took the bait, she told Vorax. Phase 2 is ready. In Earth orbit, Captain Eric Bennett waited with another fleet. The UES Pioneer had been retrofitted once more, now equipped with weapons and defenses far beyond what the Zalaxians thought possible. Dr. Grant stood on the bridge with him. The sensor net is active, she reported. We'll know the moment they arrive. When the Zalaxian ships appeared, They found not a defenseless planet, but a world prepared for them. Orbital defense platforms, previously hidden, powered up. The human fleet moved into formation, and something else waited, a ring of small satellites encircling the solar system. "What are those?" asked a Zalaxian officer, pointing at the satellites on the display. Before Krestar could answer, Dr. Grant activated the solar system defense network. Each satellite projected an energy field that connected to the others, creating a vast web. The Zalaxian ships found themselves unable to maneuver properly, their systems disrupted by the field. "Target their engines and weapons," Bennett ordered. "Disable, don't destroy." The battle in Earth orbit was short but intense. Most Zalaxian ships surrendered when they realized they couldn't fight back effectively. Some tried to flee but found their jump drives wouldn't work within the energy field. Grand Admiral Krestar watched in horror as his fleet was systematically disabled around him. The Emperor's fist, once the pride of the Imperial Navy, drifted powerless in space. "How?" he whispered. "How did they do this?" As human boarding parties approached his ship, Krestar received a final transmission. It showed Dr. Grant standing before a hologram of a Zalaxian faster-than-light drive. "Your technology had flaws," she explained simply. "We fixed them, and then we improved them." For the first time in his life, Grand Admiral Krestar, who had laughed at humans just a few years before, knew what true fear felt like. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, representatives from 50 formerly subjugated species gathered in a grand hall in Geneva. Humans, Navari, Keldor, and many others sat together as equals. The room buzzed with dozens of languages, all translated by small devices developed by Dr. Grant. Admiral Rodriguez stood at a podium, looking out at the diverse gathering. "Today we celebrate not just the fall of the Zalaxian Empire, but the birth of something new, the Galactic Council of Free Worlds." Applause filled the hall. On screens around the room, similar gatherings on other worlds watched and cheered. The rebellion had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. After the defeat of Krestar's fleet, the remaining Zalaxian forces had faced a choice: continue fighting a losing war or accept the new reality. Most chose peace. The Zalaxians ruled through fear and mockery. Rodriguez continued. They believed they were superior to all other life forms. That arrogance was their downfall. In the front row sat Dr. Grant and Sean Mitchell. Their technologies had been shared freely with all member worlds of the new council. Already, combined research teams were making breakthroughs that the isolated Zalaxian scientists never could. Rodriguez gestured to an empty chair with the Zalaxian emblem. "We have invited the Zalaxian Provisional Government to join the council as equals. They have not yet accepted, but the offer remains open." On what was once the Zalaxian throne world, the Empire's ruling class struggled to understand their new position. Their mighty fleets were gone. Their subject worlds had declared independence. For the first time in millennia, the Zalaxians had to earn respect rather than demand it. Back in Geneva, Sean Mitchell approached the podium. "When the Zalaxians first contacted us, they treated humans as amusing children. They broadcast our lives as entertainment." He paused. "Those broadcasts have now been replaced by educational programs about cooperation and innovation." The audience laughed and applauded again. In orbit above Earth, Captain Eric Bennett walked the corridors of the UES Pioneer one last time. The ship that had made first contact was now a museum piece, preserved to remind future generations how it all began. Bennett paused at a memorial wall showing the names of those lost in the fighting. Not all battles had ended peacefully. When Krestar realized his flagship was about to be captured, he had ordered a suicide attack on the Pioneer. Bennett and most of his crew had escaped, but 23 humans had given their lives to protect Earth. A young officer approached. "Captain, the new ship is ready for inspection." Bennett nodded and followed her to a shuttle. They flew to a massive space dock where the UES Unity waited, the first of a new class of exploration vessels. Unlike the warships built for the rebellion, the Unity was designed purely for peaceful discovery. "She's beautiful," Bennett said, viewing the sleek lines of the ship. And fast, the officer added. Using the combined knowledge of all council races, she can reach the Andromeda Galaxy in just 3 months. Bennett smiled. New horizons. On a distant world at the edge of what was once Zalaxian space, a group of former Imperial officers huddled in a bunker. They had refused to surrender, vowing to rebuild the Empire. The humans will grow weak and complacent, just as we did, their leader insisted. Then we will strike back. A sensor alert interrupted him. Ships were approaching. A mix of human, Navari, and Keldor designs. They found us, someone whispered in fear. The communication screen activated, showing Admiral Rodriguez. Attention Zalaxian holdouts. You have 2 options. Surrender and join the new Galactic Society as equals, or continue running for the rest of your lives. The choice is yours. The Zalaxian leader stared at the screen, seeing not hatred in Rodriguez's eyes, but something worse. Pity. Back on Earth, Lisa Parker sat with a Zalaxian child who had been orphaned in the fighting. The girl was learning to read English. "Why did your people help us after what we did to you?" the child asked. Lisa smiled gently. Because true strength isn't about conquering others. It's about lifting everyone up together. The child considered this, then pointed to a word in her book. What does this mean? The word was humanity. Lisa thought for a moment. It means finding the best in yourself and sharing it with others. As stars sparkled in the night sky above them, the human race looked to the future, no longer as entertainment for galactic overlords, but as architects of a new age of cooperation and discovery.